Hello, and welcome again to Talking Baseball with Leon Lee. Here we are, it's July 16th, 2018 on hot and warm Sacramento, California again, 100 degrees again. And I'm here with Leon Lee and Eddie Cervantes. And how are you guys doing today?
Boy, we're doing great. How about you, Eddie?
Yeah, I'm doing good. This hot weather keeps these old bones and muscles loose.
Nice. Yeah, you're old. I've thrown 3 hours of batting practice today while you were behind air conditioning.
That's right.
I had in an unconditioned 2 different batting cages that were both non-air conditioned.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, you're good and loose.
Oh boy, but it's baseball. We all love baseball. We're here again talking on the podcast. We may get a little controversial tonight. I don't know if I warned you about that, Eddie and Steve. Might get a little controversial talking about all the rule changes in baseball. Not to bash it or anything, because it's an ever-changing game. There's a lot of good things going on in the game now. We're a little bit old school, Steve. So, we do want to talk a little bit about some of the rule changes, to me, that are pretty extreme. I'm not a big fan of all the older things that are happening, the instant replays, and I think the imperfect part of the game should stay imperfect. I think the umpires should stay in keep the power in the hands of the umpires. I think there's some areas that it works, but some of the rule changes, like the automatic ball four, just irks the heck out of me. What do you think, Eddie?
I agree. I don't think why change the game for some pitchers have to throw the ball to the catcher, and the purpose of a pitcher is to try and get the batter out. And if there's a situation that comes up that he wants to walk him unintentionally, they can work around. They pitch around hitters, so that's not a problem. But all of a sudden, with an intentional walk, there are some pitchers that struggle to throw to that outside, basically a no target to the hand or the glove that's sticking out. It's uncomfortable for some pitchers, but okay, make the adjustment, figure out how to do it.
And a lot of things, and we've both seen in our career. I actually, once I played in Japan, I hit a home run on a 3-0 pitch when they were walking me on purpose.
There you go.
And I knew the pitcher he was a little uncomfortable. He didn't want to throw a ball away, and he was getting a little closer, inching a little closer to that home plate. And I thought, if he makes a mistake here, I may get him.
Yeah.
And I did. And some pitchers, like you said, they're very uncomfortable. And after they walk a guy intentionally sometimes, they come back and have a tough time finding the strike zone. Now, the reasons behind it to help speed a ball game up, to me, doesn't justify the enormity of that change.
No, that's not a valid argument, because how many intentional walks do you have in a game?
Not many.
Hardly any.
Hardly any ever.
Time. Steve, I think you came up with a figure that was around 3 a week or something.
Yeah, for a team, maybe 3 or 4 a week. I mean, so that you can go a couple games without having an intentional walk.
Yeah, so how much time are you going to be saving? Yeah, basically, it has no effect on length of game.
Right.
And and who knows who and really why, even though we know that we were given the idea that it was for time saving,
or what they term it as pace of play.
Pace of play, exactly.
Well, I look at it like this: the fans pay a lot of money nowadays to go to a ball game. Number one, and going back a little bit, I go back to days of Don Drysdale, who was a great pitcher for the LA Dodgers, who was a really high tempo pitcher. Bob Gibson, St. Louis Cardinals, had a 1.12 ERA one year. All the time pitched ahead in the count. The pitchers that control the tempo of the games, I didn't care if they walked 2 or 3 guys a game, or if the manager went to the mound 2 or 3 times a game. The game was always 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes. The tempo of the game is dictated a lot by the content of, how, you have pitchers now that are learning all these different pitches and going 3-2. I think they're hitting the wrong spots in how to speed a ball game up. And when they start talking about instant replay, to me, that adds time to a ball game.
That's
Am I right?
Yeah, excuse me. But anytime, I mean, we're saving almost no time on the intentional walk. But then with the review, the institution of the review of all these plays, now you just negated any time that's going to be saved for an intentional walk with all the reviews. And then some. There's so much time on reviews that, you know.
Yeah, and here's the thing I don't like about the reviews that I'd like you to comment on is the disruption of the rhythm and flow or momentum change or halting of the momentum that
Sure.
can have on an inning.
It does, absolutely. And especially for a pitcher who gets into a rhythm and all of a sudden the whole play is stopped to go back and review. It goes all the way to New York. They're looking at video. They're looking at 4 or 5 different angles at the same time. The pitcher is frozen. It almost adds a specific strategy. It's like in NFL football. Right before the kick of an extra point, team will call timeout to throw off the rhythm of a kicker. You know, sometimes a batter will step out of the batter's box to mess up the rhythm of a pitcher.
Sure.
Well, now baseball itself is adding to that dilemma because they're saying timeout, instant replay. And a lot of times, you know, whether it's overturned or not, and Eddie brought up a great point the other day. There's a sliding head first play at second base. The runner obviously beats the throw in with his hands, but his momentum carries him on over and over, and the guy catches the ball in the meantime. The defensive player puts the tag on the guy and holds it on him, and for a brief split second in the middle of the slide, the leg may come up off the bag a little bit. Well, to me, when he first got there and he hit that bag, he was safe. So instant replay shows a little part of the body comes away from the bag, and they overturn the call and call him out.
Yeah, there was a play. I saw a play just the other day where the guy goes feet first, and he beats the throw. His lead foot hits the bag, and the tag comes on his back leg. But after that lead foot leg bends, it pops up over. It's on top of the bag,
which is
and
a normal action. Yes.
It comes up maybe 2 inches at the most above the bag, and because the glove was in contact with his other leg, his bent leg, he was out.
Yeah.
He was out. Well, okay, you know what? Now that bodes the question, why not change that, make an adjustment to that rule? Make an exception for if your foot on a regular slide pops up a little bit and you're within the perimeter of the bag.
Or not out of control.
Within the cylinder of the bag going, you know, and it's within reason. You didn't lose balance. It wasn't a bad slide. It just pops up. Well, why not make that an exception? You're in the cylinder of the bag. So, you know, don't they have the basketball rule in the cylinder?
Yeah.
Have ball in the cylinder, that's goaltending.
But look at this one, though. Okay, you're playing shortstop. Great shortstop. There's a ground ball hit to second base, Eddie. Runner at first base, coming towards second base. The second baseman makes a throw to you. You're really quick. Like Omar Vizquel, you get guys, Ozzie Smith, the guys that are really quick in their hands. Now, they've obviously made the catch, and on their transfer, they're getting ready to make the throw, and they drop the ball.
Ball pops out. Yeah.
The ball pops out. The umpire makes a judgment. He had the ball. The runner's still out.
He's out because...
Well, the same thing on a continuation of a slide. He called him safe. The foot hit the bag. He's in there. Like you said, he's in the cylinder. He's not out of control. He's not falling off the bag.
Exactly.
So why can't you have that? He's on the bag. He's safe first. He came off a little bit, and the guy's holding the tag. No. He's still safe.
Yeah.
You got to have a rule change on that. I mean,
Yeah.
It's just to me, the guy legitimately stole the bag because he came. In the old days, when you were a shortstop coming across the bag, you didn't always have to make contact with the bag on a double play. If you were in the vicinity and you weren't out of control, the umpire would automatically call that guy out.
Usually, as you're coming by the bag, you're just kicking at the bag. You're
Yeah.
swiping at it. Sometimes you hit it. Sometimes you went over the top of it, and you know what? A lot of times, And I've heard it described where if you came over the bag and weren't in contact with the bag, you were in the cylinder.
You were in the cylinder.
There's that terminology.
Yeah.
You were in the cylinder of the bag, and so that's good enough for a force out.
To me, that's baseball, because
So-
at this other end of the thing, the runners were taught not to make it easy on that guy turning the double play. We'd had that turn, break it up, break up two, break up the double play.
It's not in the spirit of the game, I don't think. It's not in the spirit of the game for to have such high scrutiny on tag plays on the bases.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And to me, Steve, it's like the fan pays, like I was saying earlier, the fans pay a good chunk of money for parking, tickets. I mean, heck, a family of four go to a major league game nowadays, they're going to spend a couple of $100. I mean, why do you want to be home in 2 hours? I mean, why do you want to speed the game? They want to enjoy the ball game. And if you have a good spirit of the game going on, a well-played game, you got, sometimes there's runs scored, fans get into it. I mean, heck, we'll do our broadcast right here, and we hit an hour before we even realize it.
Right.
But for the fans, if they have a decision they need to go home and they're in a hurry, well, they're free to leave. But for that diehard fan that wants to see a 3-hour ball game, he loves baseball. They're paying whatever it takes. They want to go to the game. Why do we want to hurry it up?
Yeah.
That's my thing. Is like, if you go out and play 18 holes of golf, why do you want to play a 2.5-hour round of golf?
Right.
So here's another one that I read this week. Now, the commissioner has said this particular rule will probably never see the light of day in MLB, but in the minor leagues and at development levels, I think they've already started implementing it, which is starting with a man on second in extra innings.
They do that in travel ball.
No, they do that in softball.
In softball.
Yeah.
Come on.
See,
That's
travel
no
ball-
place in pro baseball.
Yeah. So I heard, I may be wrong, but I thought they were starting to do this in the minor leagues.
You know what they ought to do? Maybe what they ought to do is two different things. Okay, you get the extra inning game starts, you get the fastest runner on one team and the fastest runner on the other team, and have a race, and the guy that wins, his team wins the game. And or, since everybody likes the home run, why don't you get your strongest hitter on one side, the strongest hitter on the other side, and they both get 3 swings, and who hits the ball at the ballpark wins the game.
Now, if I'm going to a minor league, like you said, it's for the fans, and some fans, like if I'm going to a minor league game and it goes into extra innings, I'm thinking I'm getting free baseball. I want to see, and I'm going to stay. I'll watch another 5-6 innings.
Without a doubt, but the thing about it in the minor leagues is a developmental level for players going to the big leagues, okay? Now, let the players learn how to play extra inning ball games, how to deal with the pressure of extra inning ball games, number one. They're not fan driven, so if you got 3,000 people at a minor league game and 2,000 of them leave after the 10th inning, so what? That's more important that the players play the game. I don't care if it goes 15 innings.
Yeah.
Let them finish that game up. That's the nature of professional baseball. Is you have to learn how to deal with the adversities of a long ball game and get up the next day, maybe get on a bus and go back out there and strap it up again.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think there was even years ago I read a pretty good book about the longest game in the minor leagues, and both Wade Boggs and Cal Ripken Jr. played in it. And I forget how many innings it was, but I think they had to finish it on another day.
The next day.
Yeah,
They did.
They
20, I think it was 30
something.
2 innings, 33 innings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's long.
And it was so long they wrote a book on the whole game.
Yeah.
Well, I was fortunate because I played in a 20-inning game in winter ball in Mexico, in the Pacific Coast League in winter ball. I'm in Mexicali, and I remember we were playing Guasave. And it was a Sunday game, and they started the game a little earlier. And if you understand, Mexicali is right on the edge of the Sonora Desert down there. And it gets cold in the winter. When that sun goes below the horizon, it gets cold. And so they start, normally games start at 8 o'clock, but they started the game at 7 on a Sunday. And come close to midnight, they had a curfew, no new inning after midnight. And we were in a 1-1 game, in the 20th inning, bottom of the 20th, and it's just a few minutes before midnight, and it was going to be the last inning before, and I don't know if we would have continued it or how they were going to handle it, but I come up with a runner on base, Jody Davis. Remember Jody Davis, the catcher with the Cubs?
With the Cubs, yeah.
And he was on base, and I hit a home run to end the game. And to this day, I would like to kind of research that and to see if it is the longest game played and won by a home run in that Winter League in Mexico. But anyway,
that's a great story. That is 20 innings.
But yeah, it's something that, like you said, why not let these players learn how to play in those conditions?
Oh, no question about it. And to me, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's an imperfect game, and there's no absolutes in it.
Yeah.
And if you happen to go 12 or 13 innings, a lot of times what happens in that you won the game in the 20th inning because of a 1-1 tie, and something that may have created that could have happened in the second inning.
Yeah,
exactly. And there's different things that happen during the course of a game that creates the situation, or even who's batting. It could have been an error in the game in the second inning that changed the rotational order. So this guy comes up in the bottom of the ninth or bottom of the 10th that normally wouldn't have been up.
Right.
Had that error not been made, it changed that order in the second.
Right.
To me, the excitement, the uncertainties of the game are what makes it a great game. We don't have to always put a runner on second base to start the inning. I
don't know about that.
I don't know about that.
Like I said, you know what? Baseball, Leon, baseball is the only sport, I'm pretty sure, of the major sports that has pretty much refrained from making major changes. Football, basketball, they've all had to make changes to the rules and how the game was played for the sake of the game.
Yeah.
A little bit, maybe not a whole lot of fanfare for all the rules that were changed. The biggest thing that baseball had to endure was the DH in the American League, I think.
Right.
Other than that, there may have been some minor things over the years, but they've kind of refrained from making major change. Then all of a sudden now, just recently, because all of a sudden you have all this new technology, you got people scrutinizing the strike zone. They've got the strike zone framed out on TV, and so it's like now it's like they got to do things to make things different,
to accommodate it.
And I don't know. It just seems like they're just grasping at straws right now.
And I'm not a fan. I know everything has to change. I think even scouting technology has changed and how you scout players, with all the new terminologies that are coming out. Scouts have all their electronic equipment on their phones, and basically they're scouting all these different things on players that didn't really apply back when I was scouting. I mean, because I don't understand there's a lot of them out there, even when whip is old with pitchers, I know, but it's still things they know, OPS and a lot of these things that come in and they break down all these different categories and what players do, and it doesn't tell me anything, because it's like, to me, it's reading a book. When you're getting ready to play a baseball game, you come out early before a game, you take your infield practice, you get prepared. That's sort of like the prologue of a book. And now all of a sudden you're playing the game, and that's like reading the book. You're reading the book, and then now the game is going on and the game is over. We've won the game 5-4. The statisticians now have a terminology to say what happened in that game. That home run was hit. The exit speed was 120 miles an hour.
So are you trying to say they got to do the book report now?
Well, the epilogue is unimportant. They got to do a book report now. Yeah, you're right. They're explaining terminology, what happened after the game, after the fact.
Right.
And to me, it's unimportant. Yeah. It's what you call useless information. I know for technicians and people in the game, it's interesting reading. It's good, people that understand it. But it doesn't have you shouldn't let the epilogue you know.
And you're referring mostly to the numbers portion of it.
Yeah, the numbers
all
portion.
the numbers, yeah.
And all the numbers come out, and this guy hit better in the daytime and the nighttime, and this guy hit this against lefties and righties, and the pitcher throws, and his curveball has a certain spin rate. And to me, if it hangs, it hangs. If it doesn't hang, it's a good curveball. I could care less about spin rate.
Yeah.
So I know that's saying I'm old school, and a lot of people say, "Come on, Leon, catch up with the times." But, you know, I've sit up in the booth in the press room sometime at Rivercat Stadium. We talk to the old school scouts. And, you know, teams go out there before a game and don't take infield because they say infield practice don't have an impact on the game. Well, to me, it does.
Sure. I think it does.
I think every team should have infield practice before every game because it gets you ready. And then now, if you look at the results of the game, why are so many games so sloppy? How come an outfielder can't throw a runner out at the plate?
Boy.
How come an infielders now at the big league level are throwing so many balls in the dirt?
Yeah.
You know, it shows to me, and it's impacting the game because the quality of the game, you see it all the way back to the lower levels now because coaches are yelling and screaming at kids for making mistakes, but they don't know how to teach them how not to make them.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have with it. So now it's impacting the players that we draft to go into pro ball. They're not really learning how to play. It's just reading the technology. And
I think, you know, historically, baseball has been a game of numbers. I mean, you can go back and look at box scores from the early 1900s and see what, or the 1920s and see what Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig did. And that's part of baseball's lore, and part of that great history that the game has. But now, like you were stating, they've taken those numbers times 10.
Well,
and now you're basically saying that the numbers are impacting how the game is being played.
Exactly.
The new stats.
But the new stats is right. But you go back in the day of the Mickey Mantles and even before that, and you looked at stats, it was at-bats, runs, hits,
and RBIs.
Doubles, home runs, RBIs, sometimes strikeouts, batting average. That's it. Now it's like OPS, WAR, WHIP. You know, it's like
I don't even know what it means.
It's a great conversation.
And that's like now what's the new pitching rule when it comes to visits to the mound?
Mound visits. That's another rule that we might want to talk about is mound visits. There's 6 mound visits allowed per team during a nine
per
inning.
game.
Yeah, per 9 innings.
Per 9 innings.
Yes.
Okay.
And that includes
the catcher.
That includes the catcher, and it includes infielders coming to the mound.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. Now I can see or look at that and not look at it in a negative fashion. I think that has merit to it. You know, sometimes managers would go visit for purely to give his relief pitcher more time to get loose.
Exactly.
He'll send a catcher out so that he doesn't use a visit in an inning. Sometimes he'll send a shortstop in to talk to the pitcher real quick. And once again, all of it just to get an extra pitch each time somebody goes, an extra pitch or 2 or 3 for that reliever in the bullpen. So, you know, hey, you know, are they really going out there to get any? I've gone out to, you know, I umpired Division I baseball. And I've gone out with after a coach has been out on the mound, and I could see that they aren't talking about anything pertaining to the game. They're just killing time, or maybe he wanted to get me out there so he can complain about the strike zone.
Yeah,
But so sometimes, you know, the visits, you know, they may not be valid. But I think the main thing that they're trying to do is, once again, they're trying to speed up the game. And, you know, 6 in a game, I don't think that's such a bad thing.
I really don't either. I think sometimes you get teams that get ridiculously long. The shortstop wants to be the leader on the field, and the way he wants to show it by always running there talking to the pitcher. And we're going, yeah, come on, go back to your position. Let the pitcher figure it out. or talk about it between innings.
There you go.
You know, and every now and then, I think just a couple of visits to the mound and talk in some situations are sufficient. I mean, in Japan, I'll go to Japan, the manager never goes to the mound to take a pitcher out or make a pitcher's change. He goes directly to the umpire.
And just makes your lineup
Just
change.
lets the lineup change. Here's the change. If it's a double switch or if he's changing pitchers, he just go tells the umpire the pitcher comes in, he gets 6 pitches, and we figure you got to be loose in the bullpen. Why do you need 8 between innings? You know, why do you need 8 pitches between innings? You should see in Japan too, when they get 2 outs, the pitcher will sometimes come out in front on the side, and he'll play catch a little bit before the inning turns. So when he goes to the mound, he gets 4 or 5 pitches, the inning starts.
Yeah.
And in between innings. You know, another thing, too, is it's not about the amount of pitches. I was doing radio for the River Cats, and the River Cats were playing Oklahoma City. And a dear friend of mine, Glenn Allen Hill, you know, we worked together and talk all the time. We were at Chicago Cubs together, and Glenn Allen goes out to talk to the pitcher. He didn't even pull him out, but it took him 10 minutes to get to the mound.
Yeah.
You know, I said even on the mic that should be a rule against that. And I'm yelling from the booth up there to Glenn Allen. I know he can't hear me. Walk faster, me. You know, it's sort of like you do all that. They implemented the 20-second rule for the pitcher. Me personally don't think it should be a rule. They should teach the pitcher to pitch faster.
Work quicker.
Just work quicker.
Yeah.
It's got to be a certain, you know, kind of a rule of thumb.
Working quick for a pitcher is
a plus.
It's to his benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other one I wanted to bring up was the pitch time limits, the 20-second. As a fan, I personally don't like seeing a clock on the baseball field.
No. On baseball.
That's one of the beauties of baseball is that it's not dictated by a clock. You can't play the clock. You can't have strategy against the clock like a lot of the other major sports. To me, that's one of the beauties of the game. Well,
before we kind of touch on that, I'd like to make another comment about a scenario I was involved in the Florida State League. Florida State League, we had a pitcher on the mound who was, he couldn't find the plate and he'd given up a couple hits. And he was, and I remember he was like the second round pick of the Orioles, and the year before, and manager comes out. Woody Smith. I remember Woody Smith was the manager for us, and he came out to the mound to take him out, and he wouldn't come out. The pitcher wouldn't come out. You know, he sat down on the mound. He wouldn't come out.
Wow.
So finally, he did. But yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's a challenge there.
One of those, yeah.
Well, let me take you back to what you'd brought up. You know, the first major rule change in baseball was the DH way back in, what was that, after the 68 season, they lowered the mound from 15 to 10 inches.
Yeah.
And then the DH came along, I think, a couple years later.
I think that was the biggest mistake they made by taking the game away from the pitcher.
I wanted to get your input. Do you guys like the DH?
You know, I have no problem with it. I prefer pitchers hitting, but I kind of like the idea. They're arguing now that they should have the DH in both leagues. I kind of like the idea of it being in one and not the other, same way in Japan. But I'm not a big fan of it. I think pitchers should hit. I think they shouldn't take the athleticism away from the pitcher. I think change the whole strategy of the game. Now, the other side of it, I like the idea that maybe for an older player who DHs, sometimes it helps save some careers.
It increases his career.
It increases his career, makes the game a little more offensive. Fans like it. So there's pros and cons on it. But
I'd like to see it be consistent on both legs.
Yeah.
One way or the other. If you're going to DH,
do it
then
in
do
both
both
legs.
legs. Otherwise, but I'm in agreement with Leon in the sense that I like the idea of it being, we're so old school that, hey, make those pitchers hit, because it creates situations, strategy situations when that pitcher comes up late in the game sometimes, and he's either pitching well or not pitching well. So changes. They make adjustments that way, but however it goes, I think it should be consistent both leagues.
Yeah.
That's all.
I mean, if you have the DH, And if I'm managing in the American League and I got Edgar Martinez or Dave Ortiz as my DHs, and I got a pretty good pitching staff around them that doesn't ever have to run the first base, heck, I got a good chance of being manager of the year. You know?
I did hear a few years back when Bobby Cox and Tony La Russa were going into the Hall of Fame, and I think in an interview I think both of them had managed in both leagues. And they both preferred the National League because it didn't have a DH, and they just enjoyed the strategy of it as far
without a doubt.
From a pure enjoyment, from a pure managerial strategy enjoyment of the game, they preferred the National League.
Well, think about this. The fifth inning of a game. Think about the fifth inning of the game. How far does a starting pitcher have to go to get
a win?
A legal win. He has to go 5.
5.
Now, close ball game. Pitcher struggling just a little bit, but he's ahead by a couple runs, and his spot is coming up with 2 men on base.
Yeah.
And that decision has to be made. Do I take this pitcher out now and don't get credit for this win? It's a sentimental decision, or is it a game decision to say, I'm going to put a pinch hitter in here right now because I've got 2 pretty good middle relief guys out there that's going to hold it down. So I need to go for these runs and bring an arm in that's doing probably a little better than that guy got in. And now the pitcher's thinking, I don't even get credit for the win.
Well, how about this?
You got to manage that, man.
Well, there you go. That is a strategic situation that the manager is put in. But how about the fact that even though he may not, if he doesn't get that complete the 5 innings, he doesn't get credit for the win, but he can get credit for the loss.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
No,
that's not fair.
Right. You took me. I have no control now.
See, now we're talking about scoring changes.
Yeah.
To me, historically, I go back. You know, we're not that old, but we're old enough to understand that even playing pickup ball, we weren't aware of instant replay or DHs or if we were in our day. Your best athlete was your pitcher sometimes.
Yeah.
You pitched and played shortstop. Those are kind of big deals. Everybody pitched. And now they're kind of creating a PO in high school, which means pitchers only. I never even knew what that meant, PO. In high school? And I go, wait a minute. I always thought the pitcher was one of your best athletes, and now they're creating just strictly pitchers, and they're pigeonholing them in there. And some of these kids have the ability to learn how to hit. And I just think they should, in high school, they should be able to enjoy all of it and then let pro ball dictate if they have a chance to, or college. I mean, if they go to college or pro ball, let them dictate now whether you're going to be a 2-way guy or a 1-way guy.
And then you have Ohtani.
Yeah. And he's setting another precedent. And, I was part of that discussion years ago. The general manager of the Nippon Ham Fighters, Toshi Shimada, is a dear friend of mine, and they were getting ready to sign him. And the question was whether he was going to come directly to America or stay in Japan. A lot of American scouts wanted him as a pitcher. And had he come directly to the United States, that's exactly what he would have become. And some of the discussions that were going on, I thought it was better for him to stay in Japan and prove that he could be a 2-way guy, which he did. And now he's came over with the Angels, and he was an effective hitter and a pitcher. Mm-hmm. Obviously now he's got some arm injuries, but he's still, running in that, playing in the DH spot.
Yeah. Again,
but you're not going to see too many of those guys nowadays because every single minor league ball club has a DH. You're not going to change that. Right. So once you come out of high school or college, you could be a 2-way guy. But if you're a pitcher, Hunter Green, kid that's top prospect, number 2 pick in the country a couple of years ago out of Sherman Oaks in L.A., 2-way guy. And now after 1 year, and Jerry Manuels mentioned that to me on Friday when we played a little golf, and he says, Leon, they converted Hunter strictly to pitching now. I said, really? And he said, yeah, he went along with it, but I mean, he could play short. He got great power. He could swing the bat. I liked him as a hitter, but he throws 100 mile an hour. And I go, well, sometimes 100 miles an hour breaks.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong with that arm, and he's 3 or 4 years out of being able to swing the bat. And then now you know that could be the end of the career. I don't know if you should look at it like that, but what do you think?
Well, I don't know, but I do know that college, a bunch of years back, maybe a couple of decades ago, they changed the lineup rules where pitchers can be listed on the lineup card as the pitcher/DH. And the reason for that is because you have a lot of pitchers in college who are, like you said, they're sometimes the better athletes on the team, and because they can pitch and they can hit. And how it works is, and it's a real complicated rule, how you handle that, because they allow some changes where you can, a pitcher now, if he comes out, if he's listed as a pitcher/DH, and you pull him out, he can go to the DH spot and bring in a pitcher so that he stays in the game as a DH, and but he's out as a pitcher. And then you can like go from a 9 to a 10 and back to a 9 lineup. It's crazy, but it's and you almost, as an umpire, you have to carry a card that just that explains it all, so that make sure you get it right when a coach wants to make these changes. But
Hey, Steve,
I think they teach these guys in college and they're used to it as kids.
Yeah.
And then they get into pro ball and all of a sudden they want to change them when,
right.
I don't know.
It's not, I remember when me and Eddie were running a summer Woodback College League team, and I know a lot of the rules, it's hard for me. I've never been able to keep up with rules too much, but I'm just that go play the game type guy, and sometimes the umpire would make calls and stuff like that, and I would always look back to Eddie and go, "Hey Eddie, can they do that?" And if Eddie said no, I was out there. All right. If Eddie said, "Yeah, they can do that," I said, "Okay, I'll sit down and be quiet." But there's times when, in the game now, with the way Major League Baseball's changing it, they're taking all the power out of qualified umpires, and a lot of these umpires have gone to school, they've studied, I only one thing about umpiring that I would always comment on is that one of the requirements to me to be a really good Major League umpire is that you've had to have some playing background. I think there's no replacement for an umpire with instincts. And we get complaints about amateur umpires moving and stuff, but a lot of these umpires have kind of gone to school, they learn the rules, but they've never played the game. So there's always that little discrepancy. But at the Major League level, if Eddie's my Major League shortstop, I can't take the power. He's the president, CEO, captain of that whole department, shortstop. So I can't take away his power in some mechanical way, the way they're doing the umpires. They're taking away the power of an umpire because he makes the call and they won't back him up.
Yeah.
And I think that if he makes a call, bang, bang, play at first place, if 25,000 people in the stands think he's wrong and 25,000 think he's right, I think that's a perfect scenario. I think let them people go home thinking he blew that call because their team lost. And the team that won, they're going to say, "Man, that was a great call. He had him all the way."
Yeah.
I mean, instant replay to me ruins it. They don't need to be right.
Well,
they don't need to play it back 15 times and, here's the suspense. His foot was on the bag, he caught the ball. Well, from a human nature, you can't see that. And a hitter, okay, do I get a chance? I just missed that foul ball. Well, let me get one more shot at it. Bad hop, hit the ball hit a rock. It took a bad hop. Replay.
Yeah, let's replay it.
Let's do it over.
So
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you when it comes to those replays on calls, it almost bodes the question is, well, are umpires getting to the point to where they almost don't care if they're right or wrong because they know it's going to be reviewed and it's going to be rectified.
That's what happens.
On the other hand, to counteract that, they do get rated. The more calls that are reviewed of yours that turn up reversing, that goes on your record. That's your rating, and it starts. And so it could mean less playoff games or no playoff games, and postseason, what have you.
Yeah.
Or who knows that there's not a whole lot of turnover with umpires at the major league level, but it is a lot more than it used to be. And they are holding them accountable a lot more. So you never know. You can get complacent as an umpire. Tough call. Boom, he's out. And you're not worried about it because now nobody's going to yell at you, and you don't have people afterwards.
But why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? When they make a call, coaches through or whatever, they appeal it. They go over to the dugout. They put on the headphones. So why don't they do this? If there's a close play and they're replaying it anyway in New York and they got cameras at every angle, if you're an umpire, and I'm standing up now on radio, there's a close call and you make the call because that's what you see it is, and it's pretty obvious. But if it's a bang-bang play and you don't make the call, you got a little earpiece in your ear.
Yeah.
And in the earpiece, somebody says they run it back real quick, and all of a sudden you delayed it a second, and everybody knows what's going on, and all of a sudden you hear a little something in your ear said he was out. He's out. So now you haven't lost a whole lot of time, right?
Right.
So if you're going to use technology, why don't the umpire just wear a little earpiece?
Use it differently.
And even behind the plate. I mean, I hate it. I hate the idea, but maybe you got that little box there and the ball goes through and you hear, beep, beep, strike, beep, ball.
Speaking of that strike zone, though, now that you see on TV, have you ever noticed that if you have a 5'7" guy come up to the plate, like an Altuve or somebody, and that square, that box is so big, and then you get somebody like a Judge, who comes up there,
6'7", yeah.
Does that it seems like that box stays the same.
So that brings up a good point. I mean, on the flip side, like we said, there's a lot of people that want to modernize the game and agree with these changes. So do you think there's some type of compromise to be had between the two opposite ends of maybe an older school type mentality versus the newer technology mentality?
Well, whoever invented this game, I don't even know if they realize how great a game they designed and how frustrating it is and how imperfect it is. And I think over the years, the reason baseball became America's game is because of the imperfection of the game. The fan paid money because they had no idea what was going to happen that day. They never knew it was going to be right all the time or got the call right or whatever. They didn't know about the technology. The game was just fine. And I agree, technology is here. There are some changes. There's some instant replays, the way stadiums are built, the judgment, whether a ball went out of the ballpark or not. That's fine. Replay it. Let's see if the guy got a home run. I like the idea that he earned a home run. Or fair and foul, where sometimes you have a bad angle and the umpire has a trouble seeing it. There's times when it's an assist for it, maybe on a trap catch in the outfield. There's areas where instant replay could get it right because they're game-changing situations. But I think for the most part, bang-bang plays at the plate, at first base, a slide at second base, a stolen base, those are all instinctive, exciting part of the game. The fans are on their feet, whether Ricky Henderson is going to slide in safe or out, and that umpire makes a call. That's the excitement of it there, not the replay. Let the umpire have control of those situations. I'm all for umpires having control of every situation, but there's some areas where you can utilize the technology. But I just think the game itself, speeding up the game and changing the rules, for me, it's ludicrous. I don't agree, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Leave the game alone. There's nothing wrong with a 2-hour, 45-minute game, a 3-hour game. People are going to buy more hot dogs the longer they are. They're going to buy more beer. They're going to buy more popcorn. They'll buy more merchandise.
So you would prefer just no rule changes?
I would say no. Okay. No rule changes. I really wouldn't.
I agree.
Eddie?
I agree. I don't think
leave it alone.
You just leave them alone. Let them play, and when it comes to all the reviews, I think that box, it slows down. Umpires their zones have gotten smaller because of it.
Yeah,
and they're calling less strikes. They're calling less strikes. And,
no question about it.
That's how you speed up the game.
Call more strikes.
Call strikes. Make the batter swing the bat. Put the ball in play. Let's see action out there. I don't. Too many times I'm watching a game on TV and I see. You look into the stands behind the hitter and catcher and umpire, and up in the stands you see these women are looking at each other, talking and yakking and yakking and yakking. And they're not even watching the game. All of a sudden, boom, guy hits one out, and they turn around, and then they start clapping.
Right.
And it's like, hey, so what? Create action on the field that people are going to watch and see, and it's not like it's not happening. I don't want to sound extreme that it's such a, but baseball can be a boring game to watch if you're not into the mental aspect of the game. If you're not watching the strategy unfold in front of you, when a batter walks up to the plate, okay, what's the pitcher going to throw? What's the catcher going to call? Or is he looking into the dugout? What's the manager calling? What kind of pitch? And then as base runners get on base, okay, what's the strategy involved there? What's the situation? What's going to happen? What are the possibilities? And so, that's the game. That's the game, not just, watch a guy hit a home run
Yeah, but, part of it, too, in most stadiums, you go to Dodger Stadium, people show up in the third and they leave in the seventh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a social thing. And if you go to most stadiums, Eddie, and I just an observance, if you get in the eighth inning of a ball game, probably 70% of the people don't know what the score is. They're there for the social aspect of it. They love so you create a good social aspect and a fun atmosphere. People love being at the stadium, and those diehard fans that are following the ball game. I think pretty much if you leave it alone, that the problem I have is you see players now arguing on third strikes or second strikes because the umpire called a strike at the knee.
I was going to bring that up.
And they're spoiled. I mean, heck, that's a hittable ball.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were younger, we were taught that with two strikes, don't let the umpire make that decision for you.
Yeah.
Now you umpired, Eddie, so.
No, what I've tell players because of my umpiring experience. I tell them with two strikes, don't, like Leon says, don't let the umpire be in control of your at bats. You take your at bat into your own hands, because you know what? As an umpire, if I have the chance to ring you up on a third strike on a pitch that's close or good, looks good, I'm going to ring you up. And that's the mentality a lot of umpires have. The mentality is how many outs in a game and how many strikes does a batter have, and that's it. Sure, they're under scrutiny right now, but that still is the mentality. I know it is, that they're out there calling outs. They want to get as many. There's 27 outs in a game, and that's what they're shooting for.
That's right. Mm-hmm. But I think I have hitters come ask me, well, that last pitch, was it a strike? And I go, what did the umpire call it? Well, the umpire called it a strike. So it's a strike. That's life.
Yeah.
There's one thing about baseball. If you get 3 strikes on you, there's not a lawyer in the world could get you off. 3 strikes mean you're out. You can't appeal it. It's been that way for years, and sometimes we always have our judgment. Sometimes a hitter will open a tad early, and all of a sudden the umpire calls that pitch on the outside part of the plate a strike, and to the hitter it looks like it's a ball.
Yeah.
So he comes back to the dugout, that umpire is terrible.
Yeah.
Well, that hitter made the mistake, and he's blaming it on the umpire because he made a bad move. And he understands with 2 strikes, that part of the plate you got to try to cover anyway, because 90% of pitchers, they're out pitches on the outer part of the plate. So if you took a strike on the outer part of the plate, that's the hitter's fault. It's not the umpire's fault. Now, you do have a few umpires that can get a little arrogant. They get a little egotistical. They can create situations. They set hitters up. They get angry and they got attitudes. And to me, that's an issue. Those guys really probably shouldn't be umpiring, or they should go take some classes on how to deal with their egos. Because they like confrontation, and that shouldn't be part of the game in that area. But at the same time, if that strike is a little bit away, my thing is, if you know the umpire has a tendency to call that pitch a strike, make the adjustment.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think you should. The hitter should. I don't think the umpire should be criticized on a pitch. Greg Maddox got that pitch all the time because he threw it to that spot. He earned it. The hitter should know that, right?
I think
they shouldn't put a box on Greg Maddox and say that's a thousandth of an inch outside that box. That's a ball. No, he earned that pitch.
I think the point you made earlier several times in this discussion is that that's life, and life is imperfect.
Exactly right.
And baseball,
that's a good term for it.
Baseball was imperfect, and that's the way you liked it.
That's the way I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I like a pitcher. I like the competition part as a hitter, and the pitcher trying to get me out. He may have got a pitch on me here. The umpire may have called one that was a little tight, but he made that pitch. He made that pitch. He earned that pitch to me. Now, I'm the one that's got to make the adjustment. I can't turn around and say, I'm pushing it off on the umpire. Well, the pitcher's went through it. And the umpire, to me, without the umpire in the game, you have no baseball game. Right. See, that's the thing about umpires. Umpires are a very necessary part of the game, and now the instant replay is taking their power away. I hate it, to be honest.
At what point do you have that umpire behind home plate? And like you said, if he's got an earpiece and all he's there, because you have to have a guy back there, because somebody's got to call fair and foul and maybe hit by pitch and what have you.
It just looks good. Yeah. It's baseball.
But if he has it, now you take him out of his rhythm with because he's just sitting back there looking at the pitch come in, and he's waiting for somebody to tell him that was a strike. Okay, strike, and then ball. Hey, so why not? That's part of action too. You see these umpires with a little personality and making these, ring ups with the bow move or whatever, or the punch out, and that's part. Some people they like to see that, and
that's
so
part of
it's another part of the entertainment.
It's part of the entertainment.
Absolutely.
And
and another thing, not to break you off, Eddie, but those calls, the Bobby Coxes, the Lou Pinellas, the
Billy Martin,
the Billy Martins, Earl Weavers. I mean, people paid money to go see them guys. They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait for the umpire to make a mistake. Here comes Earl. Yeah, get him. We used to always say, get your money's worth. Get your money's worth.
Yeah.
That was an exciting part of the game. Now what do? Throw a towel out there?
Yeah.
They throw a towel or raise their hand?
Well, when they first changed the rule, when reviews came in, at first the coach would go out, and he wouldn't go out and argue. He's just going, hey, okay, I think we're gonna wait and see if we're gonna review it or not. Yeah. He said, I think you got in there. What do you think? They're having a pleasant conversation.
Yeah.
He says, where are you guys going to dinner after? And said, okay, yeah, we're gonna review it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
It's not the same.
It ain't the same.
It's not the same.
I keep coming up with questions to spur you guys on, but we should probably start wrapping this one up. Since we've been talking a while, we could probably talk the rest of the evening.
Oh yes, we can.
So, any final points on the?
Well, I think it's a great conversation, and I will say for the listeners out there, and I'll take your steam away from you, Steve. That what we like to have is sometimes get feedback from fans that they want to. You could announce the setup, how they get back to us on our website, because I would love to have me and Eddie, and sometimes we're going to have extra guests on here and some other professional guys to be able to answer or comment on some of the questions that maybe some of the listeners may want to call in and have that conversation, so they could be part of this, because it's a great conversation. The different rules, the different things and how-tos and all different aspects of the game and the way the game is changing. I think it's changing for the worse.
Yeah, it's something that you don't have to agree with, and let me remind everyone of the podcast website of talkingbaseballwithleonlee.podbean.com. And as Leon was alluding to, please feel free to send comments or questions to talkingbaseballwithleonlee@gmail.com. And we'll also post that information when we post this podcast. But hopefully if you agree or disagree or have some comments on the controversial subjects we talk about, please feel free to contact us. So and hopefully we'll talk to you all again soon.